Hola, señores, señoritas. One of us is happier than any other of us. Can you guess which one it is? Is it Shaka Hislop? Is it Luis Miguel Echegaray? Or is it Rodrigo Fayez proudly sporting La Roja, the top for the Spanish national team? How are the nerves as Spain win it with less than a minute of extra time to go, Rodri?
It was crazy, to be honest. I was late because I was celebrating Mikel Merino's goal. So sorry for this. And it was just like happiness. It was amazing, and I was a bit angry. I gotta admit this. I gotta be honest because in the second part of the 90-minute game, I didn't agree with De La Fuente's substitution, and I was mad at him. But in that extra time, I think Spain did it really well. I think we resisted against a great Germany. And when Mikel Merino made that header, I was crazy. I was like, "What are you gonna do?" And suddenly it was a goal. And we started to jump here in my flat. I started to scream. The guys that are my neighbors, they are English, and they were like, shut up, please shut up. And I was like, sorry for that. But we scored a goal and we're in the semifinals.
Yeah, it looks like you've just finished playing the game on your PlayStation.
Yeah, I'm sweating a little bit.
Unbelievable. By the way, you do realize you will be playing for Spain in the semi-final because everybody else is suspended.
Why not? I can do it much better than Morata.
Shaka, let's start at the end, shall we? Because it was a tale of two headers. That is as good a technique as I have seen from Mikel Merino. Now, he didn't do great last season as far as goal scoring is concerned for Real Sociedad. That's not his type of game for La Real. He scored 5 goals, but he's scored now his second goal for his country, and it was a brilliant header. And you could argue his technique is a lot better than Nicholas Füllkrug, who pretty much had one of the last touches of the game when he headed just wide, and that would have sent us to penalties. So a tale of two headers at the end. We'll make our way back to the beginning, but I want to start there, Shaq.
Well, I don't know if I say Merino's technique was better than Füllkrug's. It was more effective, quite clearly. Mm-hmm. But I thought Merino's technique was pretty unorthodox, in all honesty. Yeah. And let's the ball in from Olmo, I thought was an absolute thing of beauty. And then I certainly didn't expect Merino that high up. Tell you who else didn't expect him that far out of the park? Rudiger, who just seemed to have absolutely no idea he was standing behind him and in a lot of space, some 6 yards out. And then I thought he got up early. I thought he kind of jumped ahead of the ball and had to kind of reach back to get his head on it. And then had to kind of twist in a way that just didn't look normal, almost didn't look natural. But for all that, the effectiveness of it was a header perfectly placed that no goalkeeper in the world would have gotten anywhere near. So as far as technique goes, I thought quite odd. Effectiveness, it couldn't be any better. Then to the other header, Füllkrug up the other end, exactly the man you want on the end of another very good cross, almost standing, had a slight jump, and it's almost as though he was trying to be a little bit too exact in beating Unai Simon, who had been absolutely incredible all game long. And from a goalkeeping perspective, I appreciate that. I appreciate when a keeper is having a really good game, in the striker's mind, he's thinking, I've got to get this side netting to beat him, as opposed to, let me just miss him by a yard or two. I've got to get it within inches of the post. And because of Unai Simon's, because of his form all game long, if not all tournament long, Füllkrug is thinking, I've got to get this inches inside the post. In the end, it goes inches just outside, and that allows Spain to hold on to the win.
LME, did the best team win today?
Yes, they did. I think that if we look overall of the course of the game, Spain had to deal with a few obstacles. Number one, Germany decided to just Mike Tyson this thing at the beginning and just be super
It was like
physical.
Street Fighter, wasn't it?
It was ridiculous. I mean, Listen, first of all, it was an absolute shame that Pedri left this game, because I think that he would have been probably one of these players that, as we have seen in the past, and especially for Barcelona, somebody that was able to maybe steady the ship, at least creatively. And Toni Kroos was very lucky not to see a yellow card with that attempt. But that pretty much set the narrative. As soon as that happened, I think the entire German side were like, oh, we can get away with almost anything at this point. So Spain really had to deal with that situation. Dani Olmo, though, his introduction, he was absolutely wonderful. He is such an underrated player. Even now, I feel. I think that he came into this game, knew exactly what the rhythm of it was going to be. And I think that thanks to him, mainly thanks to him, obviously because of the opener for Spain, many things were steadied for La Roja. And as the game developed, still though, Spain had to deal with a few issues through it. But to answer your question, I think Spain overall took care of business, because Kai Havertz had some moments he couldn't take care of. Xhaka talked about Fulkrug's header at the end. And in the end, the subs, Luis de la Fuente, as much as I was angry with him that he took off Lamine Yamal, because I really think that the tide kind of changed there, because I think Luis de la Fuente was being more reactive as opposed to being proactive. And it was that fault, I think, that take it to extra time. Mikel Merino with that wonderful unconventional header. So in the end, yes, the right team won, Spain winning 2-1.
Can I just jump in?
Sure.
I'm not so sure I'd commit and say, not to just disagree with Elmi, but to say the best team.
Why not,
I don't mean that.
Why not disagree with them?
I don't mean that as any kind of disrespect.
Everybody does.
Either. I just thought we saw two incredible football teams play an incredible game of football. That really, and Elmi is absolutely right. When you look at some of Kai Havertz's chances, when you look at the Fulkrug header, could have gone the other way just as easily. So it really was, and which I expect everybody thought coming into this game that this was just too hard to call, because it's two good football teams, and what we got on the day was both those teams delivering, and credit to both. Spain got it, Spain won it because of that moment of quality from Olmo and Munir at the end. But truth is that it was a game that just oozed quality from beginning to end, and had its fair share of physicality, as to LME's point as well.
Is that a plant behind you, or are dinosaurs no longer extinct? Because it's doing a lot of moving.
It keeps moving every time you talk, and I feel like there's
resting on it. So every time
You're right though, MD. You're right though. It feels like there's a velociraptor ready to come.
Anyway, let's get back to the football. Some things happen, and sometimes you've got no control over them, Rodri. And I think LME was spot on there. Toni Kroos was like a wrecking ball at the start. He was so lucky not to be booked there, because he was booked after 67 for pulling the jersey of Dani Olmo because he couldn't be bothered trying to close him down. Whether he would have done that if he'd been booked, I don't think so. He's just like, I can't be bothered anymore.
Be bothered.
But you know what? Dani Olmo probably Pedri's a brilliant player. We love commentating him, and you love watching him as well. But Dani Olmo's probably better suited to playing that 10 role in that system with Morata than Pedri is. And Dani Olmo had such a key role. What was that, a goal and an assist? Today, there's not many times that happens, Rodri.
Yeah, I think that Toni Kroos' intention was to try to get Pedri out of the game. I mean, he tried hard in the first 10 minutes and he got it. First of all, I mean, in Spain, we can't believe Toni Kroos could end the game with no red card. I mean, it's impossible. And I think that Anthony Taylor did it really bad, because no one really understands that. Even
he was inconsistent today, Rodri, Anthony Taylor. He was given yellows for certain things, and then the same thing would happen later, and you wouldn't get a yellow for it. I thought he was pretty inconsistent today.
Yeah, it looks like, no one wanted Toni Kroos to retire. And, it's his option. But, you got to respect the game, and you got to be really, you got to be fair with both teams, with only one team. And I don't really understand why Toni Kroos didn't see the red card. But beside that, I think that the Dani Olmo, he was, for me, the MVP of the game, because he improved what Pedri could have done. First of all, because of his physicality, he's better in shape than Pedri. And secondly, because of the way that Germany played. in the first part of the game, apart from the boxing game the Germany did in the first 15 minutes, when the Germans started to play a little bit, Dani Olmo was the key of the Spain's attack. He was trying to defend. He was helping some other teams in order to play better as a collective, and he was perfect in that position on the field. And the good thing that Dani Olmo has is those assists and the way that he kicks from outside the box. And I think that it was at the end of the day better for Spain than Pedri. I hope that Pedri can recover on time for semifinals. But Dani Olmo, he did a great game. I think it's the best Dani Olmo game that I remember up to this date, and he's the MVP. I think it's fair enough for him. And he said after the game that he was so happy to be at the country he's playing in every year, trying to succeed with Spain. So everyone's happy except Toni Kroos and Anthony Taylor. I guess they're gonna have dinner tonight together.
Steady on. We'll speak more about Toni Kroos because that's his final game. He's now retired. But
Respect.
I want to get the thoughts of all three of you. I want to start with you, LME, with regards to the goals for Spain. It's a good thing, yes, that the goals are being spread out. But one of the questions we've had, and feel free in the comments to submit questions to us, is it a good thing that they're being spread out, or a bad thing now that they don't have a focal point in attack for a semi-final against either France or Portugal because Alvaro Morata is suspended? So who replaces him, LME?
Well, it is a good thing that it's being spread out because I think that's ultimately the philosophy of Spain. Like, obviously, you want to have your pinpoint man in Alvaro Morata to be, but he's not really the striker that Spain relies on to score. He's the striker that Spain's relying on to hold the ball, create play. In fact, Dani Olmo's goal was because Morata released Lamine Yamal to the side. He was way deeper inside. So really, it's about positionally, who do you want to have? So there are options, right? Towards the end of the game, before taping, we were talking about how Spain really were putting Dani Olmo, Oyarzabal sort of together in this 2-10 side, and then two behind in the midfield, a sort of 2-2 up. So you don't really need a normal striker. I mean, Joselu obviously could be this replacement striker for part of it, but I don't think that you need to mess, number one, with the most important ingredient, which is Lamine Yamal on one side, Nico Williams on the other one. And if that has to be Dani Olmo just even playing this sort of deep 10, false 9, whatever you want to call it, that kind of just supports those two coming from the outside in, then so be it. Or do you want to make it more of a conventional wisdom and have a regular striker, just put yourself right in the middle? I mean, even Ferran Torres could even do the job because this is a very fluid Spain. Mm-hmm. The key thing is this. It doesn't matter where the goals come from. It's where the productivity comes from. And as long as you have Lamine Yamal and Nico on both sides, Spain should be happy. But yes, obviously, you want to have Morata, the starting line, the starting striker there for Luis de la Fuente. But they have enough weapons.
But he's suspended for the semi-final, Rodri. So what do they do? Joselu was mentioned there. If it's France, likely to be up against William Saliba. If it's Portugal, then it'll be Pepe. Would they want someone like a Joselu? Would they prefer that? Or would they want someone to maybe like a false 9, someone that they wouldn't have in their area, but they'd be pretty comfortable about stopping when he got into their area for the semi-final? What do you think?
I think it's going to be Joselu. I think it's going to be only, Morata is not going to be playing, so Joselu, because if not, you got to change the whole team. And I don't see De La Fuente, to be honest, because he's really conservative in all terms. I don't see him changing everything or making some kind of experiments to face. Doesn't really matter if you're going to play against France or Portugal. So I guess it's going to be man by man. And Morata, for me, I know there's a lot of debate even here in Spain because Morata is not the striker he used to be anymore. But at the same time, it's like the guy who make the rest of the teammates play better. Because, when we see Lamine Yamal or Iñaki Williams play this way, it's just because Morata is like his older brother or his father or his teacher. He's during the whole game, I remember in the first game between Spain and Croatia, I was in the stadium and Morata didn't stop to teach them, like, you're going to move here and I'm going to move here. So we create this space and you're going to be able to, with your speed and with all your dribblings, try to be, in a fair position to try to score. And that is something that only Morata has in that attacking position. Joselu, I think he's maybe he has more goal than Morata, but I don't really see Joselu like, very consistent for
he needs service,
90-minute
doesn't he? He doesn't
games.
play the Morata role. They're very different
True.
types of players. I mean, Joselu was usually brought on by Real Madrid if they needed a goal, or when he played, they played him pretty close to Vinny Jr. or Rodrigo, whereas Morata does come short and it does allow others to go in. Shaq, it's not just Morata that'll be missing for the semi-final. Robin Lenormand was replaced at halftime. He'd already been booked. They brought on Nacho. That seems an obvious switch for the semis. But the other one, Dani Carvajal, the right back, will be missing. Jesus Navas, potentially a replacement. Do you think it'll simply be like for those that miss out in the semis?
Yeah, I think without question, you go like for like substitutions. Certainly positionally, I stress on positionally because while we're talking about, can we talk about any number of players here missing for Spain? Carvajal has been really good. I think again, kind of one of those players who's just been around for so long, and you get to understand and accept his qualities that when he is good, you just accepted it. Yeah, that's Dani Carvajal being Dani Carvajal. But he is such an important player in such a nondescript position as right back. That while yes, okay, like for like swap. It's difficult to replace someone like Dani Carvajal. So listen, all that being said, it's been a few days now to figure those problems out. Right now, that's on nobody's mind. I'm sure Rodri's not thinking about that himself either, sitting in his apartment. Right now, it's about celebrating the fact that you're in the semi-final, albeit with some issues to address. But you much prefer that than to not be in the semi-final with no issues at all.
LME Toni Kroos now retired. His importance to Germany, I think we've seen that. His odds were less than 6-1 prior to this game for player of the tournament. Obviously, that ain't going to happen now because you've pretty much got to get to the semis or the final. But to have him back for this tournament after he'd announced his retirement, where does he kind of sit in the pantheon of German football greats?
Oh, man, what a question. I mean, 6-time Champions League winner, a World Cup winner. We've talked about everything that he has done as an individual, as a team player. But Germany has a really big list of royalty, right? From Beckenbauer to Gerd Müller, Lothar Matthäus, Philipp Lahm. I mean, I would put him in the top 10 for sure. And that's a massive compliment because Germany, right, one of the greatest soccer nations, definitely in Europe, has a lot of ridiculous individual talent going all the way back. But I would put him into top 10 because Toni Kroos, what he has done for clubs and country is remarkable. And also the way that he has done it, because really when you look at the plethora of work that he has done, he's not really your prototypical midfielder. He's had to adjust a lot. And he's had to adjust specifically in a Real Madrid side that's like moved around definitely creatively. So I would put him in the top 10, and that's a massive compliment because, like I said, there's a lot of great German greats, both past and present.
Xhaka, he's only 34 as well, and he's decided that's it. Good on him for that decision, but we'll all miss him, won't we?
Absolutely. I think the game misses Toni Kroos, not just German football. And listen, we've seen very talented players retired at early ages. We've seen some step away from, well, albeit Toni Kroos step away from football entirely, but we've seen some step away from international football and make glorious returns. Zinedine Zidane, and I think Toni Kroos is up there. You know, where as much as I am always a little bit reluctant to talk about individual players and how they fit in with, especially with a country like Germany, in the greater narrative of all-time greats, because of course there's a certain recency bias, especially with a country whose history is as deep as Germany's, whether we're talking, you know, Germany or West or East Germany, depending on how far back we decide to go. But you've got to enjoy Toni Kroos for who he is, for the footballer that he's shown himself to be, a player who was, in his mind, underappreciated at Bayern Munich, and so left. And went to Real Madrid and was everything that anybody could ask a midfielder to be in the white of Madrid. You know, in terms of covering every inch of the park, his passing range with both feet, his vision, everything about Toni Kroos complete midfielder. And his stepping away is his decision, and it's his right to make. But as a football fan, it's one I wish he'd taken a little bit more time, that we could have enjoyed Toni Kroos a little bit more. But again, that's just me being selfish.
Finally, before we let Rodri go, the big question of the day is as follows. Is it sangria, Rioja, or one of these beers that you're going to celebrate tonight with Rodri? San Miguel, Estrella Damm, Alhambra, Ambar,
you know all of them.
Campo. I've got the list.
Now I'm going to celebrate with Asturian cider, you know, that we have poured from the bottle to the glass, which is from my region, northern Spain. And I'm going to be even happier than with San Miguel or some other kind of beer. And it's going to be, you know, the next time I go to visit you in Connecticut, I'm going to bring you a box to try to teach you, because that's something good for everyone.
Give it to your English neighbors as well, Rodri.
No, hold on. I don't want you to come here. Why don't the three of us come to you?
Yeah, you're more than invited.
Now you're talking.
Maybe for semifinals or even for the final, because we're gonna get to the final. Maybe you're more than invited here. I mean, my setup is not as big as ESPN setups, but I mean, we can feed here.
You know,
Rodri, maybe your English neighbors can Airbnb, and then we won't know.
Come on, forget about that.
You know what, Rodri? No Scotland, no party. So we'll come to you. Don't worry about that. We'll be joined by Dallin Cuff very shortly after the break, because we're going to preview the games tomorrow. But Xhaka and his movable plant are staying. So is LME.